So this is a cool feature that I just happened to learn about accidentally a few days ago. If you park your car and walk away from it, of course the car will lock. That's a very nice feature. But the window will also go up if you left it down. Very cool. One of the things Ann wanted to do was to visit Bearizona, which is in Williams. They do rescue work with wounded and lost animals, as well as provide a theme park type atmosphere. The first part of the trip, you drive around a number of enclosed areas which are segregated by species. And what they do is they put some animals out in that particular area every day, but they have larger areas which are not visible to the public. Generally speaking, these animals try to stay as far away from the road as possible, so it was pretty hard to pick them out. So we saw a few, but for the most part, we thought the more typical zoo display, which they also have, was more interesting and more fun. We saw a number of wolves, coyotes, a few elk, a few bears, a lot of American bison. We have a badger, and they want to get... We found this leopard pair interesting. They actually are litter mates, but one has the traditional spotted markings, and the other one apparently has some type of recessive genes where the pigment is entirely black. So it doesn't really look like a jaguar, more like a panther. These are 3 rescue grizzly bears. Although they are over 300 pounds, they're still relatively young. Porcupines. Bearizona has a very nice cafe, gift shop, and they're continuing to expand the park. It was here that I realized I had left my American Express card at the restaurant at Grand Canyon yesterday, so I had to sit for a few minutes and deal with that. I had a replacement card shipped to Ed, my friend in Boulder, that I'm going to see later. But I was interested to find out that my Apple Pay, which is connected to my American Express card, continues to work, even though it would not work as a separate card. Since I actually prefer the touchless credit card payment entry method, it's really not going to inconvenience me much at all. This is an elk. What a massive rack of horns he has. And once again, he's about as far away from people as he can get. And this is a reindeer, again, with some beautiful antlers. After leaving Bearizona, we're back on the road again, heading to the Hoover Dam and then Las Vegas. I think northern Arizona is very pretty, and the temperatures here are cool at night and pretty moderate during the day. We stopped in Kingman, Arizona to use their supercharger and to visit a museum that I'd read about that I wanted to see. The Kingman Powerhouse Museum is worth seeing. It's in a building that was an actual powerhouse, an oil-fired, steam-driven electrical plant which supplied the initial electricity for this entire area. Now it's a very interesting museum of the history of Route 66 over the years, and it also has a separate exhibit of electric vehicles through the years. Route 66 and then Interstate 40 basically followed the same route as the early settlers of the West who came for a better life, often in a prairie schooner. Later, during the Depression, many people fled terrible conditions in the city and made it out west any way they could. These times were chronicled by John Steinbeck's bestseller, The Grapes of Wrath. This old Studebaker, 1950, as I remember, 51, is part of the Route 66 exhibit, which has some very interesting paintings of some of the iconic stops along that old highway. There were some very interesting exhibits of early electric vehicles, some dating way back to the 1920s. This particular one is a actual solar car made by Stanford engineering students. Here's an old Model T Ford, I think, with electric motor and a battery, as you can see. And here's a racing car which set a land speed record in the Salt Flats at Bonneville at over 300 miles an hour at the time. Of course, golf carts have been electric for many decades, and they had an old one previously owned by Willie Nelson. We made a quick supercharged stop at Kingman and then had a bite to eat, and we're on our way. Heading to the Hoover Dam and Lake Mead. There's the Colorado River flowing out of the dam. I need a bit of background for this next episode. Before leaving, several people suggested I carry a revolver, which I was reluctant to do because I didn't think I wanted to get into a gunfight. But I was persuaded that it would be nice to have one, even if you never used it, because there might be a circumstance where it could literally save your life. So a friend of mine, Howard, loaned me a pistol, 38 Special, and some bullets. And I put 2 scattershot bullets, which would wound somebody. And then I put some real bullets in. So I had forgotten all about it. I put it under my seat and had not touched it since leaving North Carolina Visitor Center, and was stopped by this fairly intimidating fence, along with a number of armed SWAT team looking policemen who were defending Hoover Dam. He asked me to roll down my window, pop the trunk, and asked me a few questions about where I was from and the purpose of my visit. And then he asked me a question I was not prepared for. He said, "Are you carrying a weapon?" Well, I had to decide quickly, and I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "Do you have a permit for the gun?" I said, "No, I don't." So I was thinking this is not going to end well. But after looking at me and Ann and thinking about it, he said, "You're free to go. Don't touch the pistol until you leave the facility." Whew! Ann and I were two relieved people. The big bridge behind me was built since the last time I was here. It's a very impressive four-lane highway, and you're not even aware you're going over Hoover Dam when you're taking it. It's named after Pat Tillman. As you may remember, he was an NFL player who enlisted in the Army Special Forces after 9/11. He was highly decorated before he was killed in Afghanistan. The drought is so real in the Southwest that the Corps of Engineers has already issued a warning that they may have to stop generating electricity within the next year because of a lack of water. There's a fascinating story about a town of about 2,000 people named St. Thomas, which was flooded after the construction of the Hoover Dam. I came across this while I was planning my trip, and I've included a small clip here, but I really would encourage you to watch the video on this, which I've included a link to in the description below.
Trail run right through the town. But when Congress approved the Hoover Dam and surveyors started arriving, the residents were told they were in the dam's path. And people started dismantling their houses and moving out. Before the water got there, most of the buildings were knocked down, dismantled, or moved. The orchards and many of the large shade trees were cut down so they wouldn't snag boats from the bottom of the lake.
Back on the road, heading to Las Vegas. It's late in the afternoon, and our plan is to stay in a suburban part of Vegas, Henderson probably, and hit the town tomorrow. we decided to stay at the Town Place Suites by Marriott, which is in a very nice part of southern Las Vegas. And we found Snowball, a place right up front.